Welcome to Quick Speak English, the podcast that helps you improve your English skills, one conversation at a time. Today, we're going to be looking at a feeling that so many people experience, but don't always talk about. It's the feeling of emptiness, of lacking direction, what some might call the void.
Yeah, it's a very common human experience, and we might feel this emptiness after a major life change, or when we're questioning our purpose, or even when we just feel overwhelmed by the demands of, well, modern life.
Yeah, for sure. I think we've all had those times where you just feel a little bit lost. It can be really difficult to deal with. So where does this feeling come from? What are some of the things that cause it?
Well, it's important to understand that this feeling can come from both internal and external factors. Think of it like a garden. A garden needs sunshine and water to thrive, but it can also be affected by things like pests or poor soil,
Right.
our inner well-being, our mental and emotional well-being. It can be influenced by things inside of us, like our thoughts and emotions, as well as by outside factors, like our relationships and the environment we live in.
That's a great analogy. So let's start with the internal factors. What are some examples of things within ourselves that might contribute to this feeling of emptiness?
Sure. Internal factors can include things like unresolved grief. Maybe you've experienced a loss that you haven't fully processed, and that sadness lingers, creating a sense of emptiness. Or maybe you have unfulfilled desires or aspirations. We all have dreams and goals, and when those aren't met, it can lead to feelings of disappointment and a lack of direction.
It's like you're reaching for something but can't quite grasp it.
Exactly. And sometimes this feeling of emptiness can come from deep existential questions. We start to wonder about the meaning of life, our purpose, and our place in the universe. These are big, complex questions, ones that don't always have easy answers, and wrestling with them can leave us feeling lost and uncertain.
Yeah, absolutely. I think those are definitely thoughts and feelings that a lot of us can relate to. It's that sense of searching for something more, something deeper.
Right. And while these internal factors can be challenging, they also give us a chance to grow. By exploring our emotions, by understanding our desires, and by seeking answers to life's big questions, we can begin to fill that void with meaning and purpose.
So it's about turning inward and understanding ourselves better. What about the external factors you mentioned? How do those things outside of ourselves contribute to this feeling of emptiness?
Well, external factors can be very influential. Think about all the pressures of modern society. We're constantly bombarded with messages about success, achievement, and the need to have it all. And this can create a sense of inadequacy, like we're not good enough or we're constantly falling short.
It's like everyone else is running a race and you're not even sure where the finish line is.
Yeah, exactly. And with the rise of social media, it's easy to compare ourselves to others and feel like we're not measuring up. We see these, curated versions of people's lives, highlighting all their successes and happiness, which can make us feel even more inadequate and empty.
It's a constant reminder of what we supposedly lack.
Yes, and it can be incredibly draining. In addition to all these societal pressures, the fast pace of modern life can also contribute to these feelings of emptiness. We're always rushing, always trying to do more, and we rarely take the time to slow down, to connect with ourselves, and to just appreciate the present moment.
It's like we're on a treadmill,
Yeah.
constantly running, but not really going anywhere.
That's a great way to put it. And when we're constantly on the go, we lose touch with our inner selves and our connection to the world around us. And this disconnect can lead to a sense of isolation and emptiness, even when we're surrounded by people and activity.
So it's not just about being alone, it's about feeling disconnected, even in a crowded room.
Exactly. And it's important to recognize that these external factors, while powerful, are not insurmountable. We can learn to navigate them by setting healthy boundaries, by prioritizing our well-being, and by cultivating a sense of inner peace that isn't dependent on external validation.
That's a really empowering message. So we've talked about the internal and external factors that can contribute to this feeling of emptiness, but how do we start to address it? How do we begin to fill that void and create a life that feels more meaningful and fulfilling?
That's a great question, and there are many different paths we can take, but one of the most important steps is self-discovery. It's about taking the time to understand ourselves better, to explore our values, our passions, and our deepest desires.
It sounds like a journey of looking inward. How do we even begin that process?
There are many tools and practices that can help with self-discovery. Journaling is a great way to process your thoughts and emotions. By writing down your feelings, you can start to identify patterns and gain clarity and make connections between your experiences and your inner world.
It's like having a conversation with yourself on paper.
Exactly. And sometimes just the act of putting your thoughts into words can help you understand them better and release some of the emotional weight you're carrying.
That makes a lot of sense. Are there other practices that can be helpful in this journey of self-discovery?
Absolutely. Meditation can be incredibly powerful. It's a practice of quieting the mind, focusing on the present moment, and cultivating a sense of inner peace. By learning to observe our thoughts and emotions without judgment, we can gain a deeper understanding of ourselves and develop a more compassionate relationship with our inner world.
It's like creating a space of stillness within ourselves,
Mhm.
even amidst the chaos of everyday life.
Exactly. And sometimes we need that stillness to hear our inner voice, to connect with our intuition, and to gain clarity about what truly matters to us.
So we've got journaling and meditation as tools for self-discovery. Are there any other avenues we can explore?
Of course. Sometimes we need guidance and support from someone outside of ourselves. Therapy can provide a safe and supportive space to explore our thoughts, feelings, and behaviors with a trained professional.
It's like having a knowledgeable and compassionate guide to help us navigate our inner world.
That's a great way to put it. A therapist can help us understand the root of our feelings of emptiness, develop coping mechanisms, and create a plan for moving forward.
So through journaling, meditation, and therapy, we can start to peel back the layers and understand ourselves on a deeper level.
Precisely. And as we gain a better understanding of ourselves, we can start to address the internal factors that might be contributing to those feelings of emptiness. It's like tending to the soil of our inner garden, nurturing ourselves so that we can grow and flourish.
That's a beautiful analogy. So we've talked about addressing the internal factors. What about those external factors? How can we navigate those pressures and create a life that feels more authentic and aligned with our values?
That's an important question, and it's something we'll explore further in the next part of our conversation.
This has been incredibly insightful. We've covered so much ground, from exploring the roots of emptiness to discovering tools for self-discovery. I'm really looking forward to diving deeper into those external factors and discussing ways to navigate them in our next conversation. But before we move on, I'd love to hear your thoughts. What stands out to you so far? What resonates with your own experience? Take a moment to reflect on what we've discussed and how it relates to your own journey.
So we were talking about that feeling of emptiness and how it can be influenced by both internal and external factors. And we've talked about some ways to address those internal factors through self-discovery, through journaling, meditation, even therapy.
Yeah, it's like we're starting to build a foundation of self-awareness and understanding, so we can better navigate, the choppy waters of emptiness.
Exactly. And now let's shift our focus to those external factors. We talked about how societal pressures, the fast pace of modern life, all of that can contribute to us feeling lost and unfulfilled.
Yeah, it's like being swept along by a current, constantly bombarded with messages about what we should be doing, achieving, even feeling.
Precisely. And it can be really difficult to find your own footing amidst all that noise and chaos. One of the most challenging aspects of these external pressures, I think, is this constant comparison that they encourage.
It's so easy to fall into that trap, especially
Yeah.
with social media, right? We see these curated versions of people's lives, their highlight reels, and it's easy to start feeling inadequate.
Absolutely. We begin to measure ourselves against these, often unrealistic standards, and it can create a deep sense of emptiness. It's like chasing a mirage, always striving for something that seems just out of reach.
So how do we break free from that cycle? That cycle of comparison, I mean. And how do we find our own path to fulfillment?
Well, one important step is to become more mindful of the messages that we're absorbing. Pay attention to how you feel when you're, let's say, scrolling through social media or consuming other forms of media. Are you feeling inspired, or are you feeling drained and inadequate?
It's about becoming aware of the impact that these external influences are having on our emotional well-being.
Exactly. And once we're aware, we can start to make conscious choices. Choices about what we allow into our mental space. We can choose to, for example, unfollow accounts that make us feel bad about ourselves. Or we can limit our exposure to media that promotes unrealistic standards. And instead, we can try to seek out content that inspires and uplifts us.
It's about curating our own mental diet, right? Nourishing ourselves with information and experiences that support our well-being.
That's a great way to put it. Another important step is to cultivate a sense of gratitude. When we focus on what we lack, it's easy to feel empty. But when we shift our focus to what we have, even the small things, it can make a world of difference.
Gratitude is like a muscle. It's a muscle that we can strengthen with practice. The more we appreciate the good things in our lives, the more we'll find to be grateful for.
Exactly. And this shift in perspective can be incredibly powerful in combating feelings of emptiness. It's about recognizing the abundance in our lives, even amidst challenges and difficulties.
So we're becoming more mindful of those external influences, and we're cultivating gratitude. What else can we do to navigate these external pressures?
Another crucial aspect is setting healthy boundaries. We live in a world that is constantly demanding our attention, our time, our energy. It's essential to learn to say no to things that drain us, and instead to prioritize activities that bring us joy and fulfillment.
It's about protecting our time and energy so we can invest them in things that truly matter to us.
Precisely. And this might mean, saying no to extra commitments, setting limits on screen time, or even just carving out time for ourselves each day to relax, to recharge, and to connect with our inner selves.
It's like creating a sanctuary for our well-being, a space where we can escape the demands of the outside world and just be.
Exactly. And by prioritizing our own well-being, we can start to create a sense of inner peace that isn't dependent on external validation or achievement.
So we're creating this buffer, right? We're creating a buffer between ourselves and those external pressures. We're becoming more mindful of the messages we're absorbing, cultivating gratitude, setting healthy boundaries. Are there any other strategies we can use to navigate this challenging terrain?
One final strategy I'd like to emphasize is the importance of cultivating meaningful connections. As humans, we are social creatures. We thrive on connection, belonging, and a sense of community. But in today's fast-paced world, it's easy to feel isolated and disconnected.
It's like we're surrounded by people, yet we still feel alone.
Exactly. And this sense of isolation can really exacerbate those feelings of emptiness. That's why it's so crucial to prioritize building meaningful relationships with people who support us, inspire us, and make us feel seen and heard.
It's about quality over quantity, isn't it? It's not about having thousands of followers online. It's about nurturing those few close relationships with people who genuinely care about us.
Precisely. These relationships provide a sense of belonging, support, and purpose, and that can be incredibly grounding, especially when we're feeling lost or adrift.
So we're becoming more mindful of external influences, cultivating gratitude, setting healthy boundaries, and nurturing those meaningful relationships.
It sounds like a really holistic approach to navigating these external factors that can make us feel empty.
It is. And it's important to remember that this is a journey, not a destination. There will be times when we feel lost and uncertain, but by implementing these strategies, we can build a foundation of resilience and well-being that can help us navigate those challenges and create a life that feels more meaningful and fulfilling. This has been incredibly insightful. We've explored those internal and external factors that can contribute to that feeling of emptiness, and we've discussed a variety of strategies for navigating those challenges and for creating a life that feels more aligned with our values and aspirations.
It's been a pleasure sharing these insights with you.
Now, before we move on to our final thoughts, I'd love to hear from you. What resonated with you most in our conversation today? What are some of the challenges you faced in navigating feelings of emptiness? And what are some of the strategies that have helped you find your way back to a sense of purpose and fulfillment? Take a moment to reflect on your own journey and how these insights might be helpful for you. We've been talking about this feeling of emptiness, this sense of lacking direction or purpose. And it's something that so many people experience at some point in their lives. And we've really dug into the internal and external factors that can contribute to this feeling. And we've discussed a variety of strategies, a variety of ways to kind of navigate these challenges. It's been quite a journey.
It has. We've explored a lot, from the depths of self-discovery to the complexities of societal pressures. But through it all, I think there's a common thread that kind of ties all these insights together, and that's the power of action.
I like that. The power of action. It's not enough to just understand the causes of emptiness, right? Or to just sort of passively wish that things were different. We have to actually do something about it.
Exactly. It's about taking those insights, those things that we've learned, and turning them into actual steps, into real changes in our lives. It's about moving from this state of emptiness to a state of creation, of building a life that actually feels meaningful and fulfilling.
So it's not just about thinking or feeling, it's about doing.
Precisely. And the beautiful thing is that action doesn't have to be, grand or sweeping. It can start with small, simple steps.
What are some examples of those small steps that people can take that can actually make a big difference?
Well, think about the strategies we've talked about. If you're feeling really overwhelmed by those societal pressures, maybe a small step is just unfollowing a few social media accounts. Those accounts that make you feel inadequate, or setting limits on your screen time.
It's about creating a little more space for yourself, a little more peace of mind.
Exactly. Or if you're feeling disconnected from yourself, disconnected from your passions, maybe a small step is journaling for 5 minutes every morning, or taking a walk in nature, or maybe signing up for a class that sparks your interest, sparks your curiosity.
It's about reconnecting with those things that bring you joy, those things that make you feel alive.
Precisely. And if you're if you're longing for deeper connections, a small step could be reaching out to a friend or joining a community group or even just smiling at a stranger.
It's about opening yourself up to that possibility of connection, of building bridges, not walls.
Exactly. And all of these small steps, these seemingly small steps, taken consistently over time, they can really create a ripple effect, an effect that can transform your life. It's like planting a seed. You nurture it with care and attention, and eventually it blossoms. It blossoms into something beautiful and strong.
So it's about starting small, being consistent, and trusting the process.
Exactly. And it's important to remember that, you're not alone in this journey. There are people who care about you. There are people who want to support you. And don't be afraid to reach out for help if you need it, whether it's a therapist, a friend, a family member, or a mentor. There are people who can offer guidance, support, and encouragement along the way.
That's such an important reminder. We don't have to do this alone.
We don't. And by connecting with others, by sharing our struggles, by sharing our triumphs, we create a sense of community, a sense of belonging. And that can be, it can be incredibly healing, incredibly empowering.
This has been such an inspiring conversation. I really appreciate it. We've explored the depths of emptiness, but we've come out of it. We've emerged with a sense of hope, a sense of possibility, and a call to action. Do you have any final thoughts you'd like to leave our listeners with today?
I would just say, embrace the journey. Embrace the ups and downs, the challenges and the triumphs. Embrace the fullness of your human experience, the light and the shadow. And trust that you have the strength, the wisdom, and the resilience to create a life that is meaningful, that is purposeful, and that is deeply, deeply fulfilling.
That's beautiful. And to our listeners, if you're feeling lost, if you're feeling empty, just remember that you're not alone. There's hope. There is help. And there's a path forward. You can start with one small step today. Nurture yourself with kindness, with compassion, and trust that you have the power within you to create a life that is rich, vibrant, and full of meaning.
Well said.
And that brings us to the end of our episode today. If you enjoyed this conversation and you'd like to continue improving your English skills, we encourage you to subscribe to Quick Speak English. We release new episodes every week on a variety of topics. And be sure to check out the description below for links to additional learning materials that are related to today's episode. You'll find vocabulary lists, exercises, and other resources to help you deepen your understanding of the topics we've discussed today.
We're here to support you on your English learning journey.
Until next time, keep learning, keep growing, and keep speaking English with confidence.
Goodbye.